Look at this one.
This.
Oh, okay, yeah. Guess it helped.
Everybody ready?
Glasses on with it.
I think in a minute.
If we can call the meeting to order here. And first, we will come out of closed session and be it resolved that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements and only such matters as were identified in the motion going to closed session were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed session. Have a motion.
I make motion.
Second. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And now if we may, Mr. Martin, you could lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Yes, sir. Please repeat with me.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, if we could just have a moment of silence, take this time for prayer, as I will, for the decisions that we have in front of us and to come forth. And just over our United States, the world that we have in front of us today. Thank you. If we go to number 2, we look at the recognitions. If I can, Mr. Mormon, if you would come forth on A, Tracy Clark.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We're very pleased to have with us today members of the Botetourt County Electoral Board, Chairman, Mr. Jack Rader, Vice Chairman, Mr. Ed Clark, and Secretary, Mr. Buck Hartwell. And they're here today to share information with you about an honor that's been bestowed upon our Director of Elections and General Registrar, Tracy Clark. And so I'd ask Chairman, Mr. Rader, if he would come forward and share that information. Thank you.
Good afternoon. And I'm John Rader. Jack. Jack's my father.
Sorry, David.
And anyway, my name is John Rader and I'm chairman of the electoral board for Botetourt County. The other two members are here, Ed Clark and Buck Hartwell. I'd like to introduce our registrar, Tracy Clark. Tracy was recently elected as president of the Voter Registrars Association, Virginia. We want to publicly acknowledge this accomplishment and honor. Botetourt is one of 133 electoral boards in the state of Virginia. One of the main focuses of the VRAV is to improve the voter registration and election processes and promote efficient administration within the offices of the general registrar. They are committed to promoting the high standards of honesty and integrity in conducting open, fair, and impartial elections. In this time of political division, we're privileged to have our registrar, Tracy, chosen by her peers to lead their group in fulfilling their mission. Thank you, Tracy. And I would like to point out that we are probably one of the few electoral boards that gets along completely well. Am I right about that?
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Tracy, it's an overwhelming job that you have in front of you for every election. And I know during certain times it becomes heated more and more. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for what you've done for Botetourt County and your time and your effort that you spent forward. So thanks again. Ms. Phillips.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I am pleased to present you today to meet two employees of ours, amazing employees at our libraries. First, Chelsea Wood. You have met her before. You may remember about a year ago, she joined our Eagle Rock Library as the team leader full-time. And since then, she has earned her degree in a Master of Library and Information Science from Old Dominion University, adding on to her two prior degrees, which are a Master of Arts in Teaching from East Tennessee University and her Bachelor of Science degree in Theater from Radford. So Chelsea has been a very busy student, and thank goodness we're done. So Chelsea has just recently in her 1-year anniversary been promoted to the Eagle Rock branch manager position. So we are very excited to see how she will bring her talents to that community. She has already been busy and has a lot of plans. So we are excited for Chelsea and thankful for all the work she has already done in Eagle Rock. She has made a lot of relationships, just really well loved by that community. I also have here today Rachel McEldowney. Rachel joined us in July last year as a part-time library assistant at the Buchanan Library. So she filled that role for about a year. It seems that 1-year anniversaries are very propitious in Botetourt. And at her 1-year anniversary, like Chelsea's 1-year anniversary, she was promoted to our youth services coordinator position and moved to the Blue Ridge Library where that position is stationed. So we are excited to have Rachel on our team. Rachel comes to us with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history from Roanoke College. She has held numerous leadership positions throughout her years, and brings that leadership to good use as she corrals a team of people who help plan youth activities and program services at our libraries. So we're very glad that she's a very organized person and can corral all that chaos and make magic happen on the front lines for our families in Botetourt who have children and teens in their families. Both of these ladies come in with a smile every day. They are so pleasant to work with. I have heard many positive comments from our community members about how helpful they are, how cheerful they are, and how much they really care. They come with something you can't build a skill in, and that is a heart to serve. So want to introduce you to both of these young ladies, and please join me in welcoming them to these new positions.
I think I gave you a call after Denise and I were down at the Blue Ridge Library and looking for some books, and Rachel helped us. And I told you, I think at that point in time, I said how helpful and wonderful she was. So thank you, Rachel, for the experience that we had.
Thank you both. Congratulations.
Chief Ferguson. I'll save my comments.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have the pleasure of introducing a renewed face to the organization. As all of you know, in July, we had a vacancy in the deputy chief's position, and by mid-August, we filled that vacancy with Mr. Rob Johnson. Rob is a born and raised Botetourt County citizen. He started his fire and EMS journey as a volunteer in Buchanan from starting in 93 and 94 with the rescue squad and fire department there. and then started his career journey in Salem Fire and EMS back in 1996. Rob is no stranger to us. He actually was hired with our team back in 2011 when we got our first SAFER grant to put on the first fire engine crew. And Rob was hired back then as the captain and served with us for about 6.5 years, elevating to the role of battalion chief of training when he took an opportunity to go back to Salem for a little bit and spent about 6.5 years there or so before coming back to us as the deputy chief in mid-August. Rob has a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership from Wardolph College. He's got a background in swift water and hazardous materials and was on those teams during his tenure in Salem, and really excited to have him on the team. I'll have to forego the hit the ground running, but he's Tony. He's definitely fit right back into the matrix and has been learning some of the new faces and things that have changed in his time since he's been here, but certainly welcome to have him back. He lives in the Blue Ridge area with his wife Amanda and daughter Paige and son Noah. So, Rob?
Yeah, glad to be back. Thank you guys for having me. I look forward to filling this role and doing a good job.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome back, finally. If nobody's had a chance to meet with Robbie, he's just absolutely wonderful person, wonderful family. Great to have him back here. Let's move to our citizens' comments. We have a few of them here. Mr. Rule.
Who did you call?
Mr. Rule. No. But you can stay right there. You can stay right there. And then we'll get to have him speak first, and then we'll get to you. Are you, okay, you're right there. Just go for it.
And I don't have much to say, so maybe he just should stay right there. Of course, good afternoon to all of you. I am Ruth Sellers live near Oriskany. And of course, our purpose is we're still trying to defeat this trail that's going to be such a dangerous situation. And my thoughts so much recently have been about the safety of this trail that is a real high up number, because the safety of the trail is very important. There are so many small things I could bring out, but it's really not necessary. I believe all of you've done any reading about our problems with this trail becoming a real thing, and we pray it doesn't. We really do, because it's so much money is being spent, going to be spent if this thing goes through. And money right now in Botetourt County is definitely needed for so many other things. Bad water situations, bad roads. And it's just too much. So I don't know, is there anything that any of you can come up with that we haven't? We'd like to know. We'd really like to know, because we're being told by VDOT, Department of Transportation, it is not a done deal. If it's not a done deal, we're still after the fact that we do not want this trail. And I'm just one individual. There are thousands and thousands of us that are really against this, because when you get up into money figures like $36 million for a trail, what do you think? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Charles Roll and Castle. Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. I just wanted to say, with the budget and the fiscal situation in the county, you've shown yourselves to not be fiscally conservative. And with this library situation, allowing and defending these materials, you're showing yourselves to not be socially conservative either. And as far as representing the people in the county, with the trail and with this library issue, the majority of people that we speak to are opposed to both. And yet you're standing firm, defending things that the people do not want. My wife and I pray for the 5 of you every day, and we hope that your hearts will be touched and you'll be open to see what is best for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. R. Bennett.
Hi, I'm Russ Bennett, Amsterdam District. I'm speaking on behalf of the children of Botetourt County, particularly those who frequent our libraries. During the past several months, we have undertaken a sort of debate. One side has wanted to maintain the current library policies on keeping sexual materials for children on the library shelves. The other side asked to have these books removed to protect the innocence of our children. I'm part of that group. BRACE, Botetourt Residents Against Child Exploitation. Our website is wearebrace.org. Our side wants to establish community standards. I hope that phrase doesn't sound threatening. Recall from our earlier discussions on some legal aspects that the Supreme Court ruled against the American Library Association, stating that, quote, libraries have wide discretion to exclude pornography and other sexually explicit material, and that, quote, a library's interest in protecting its minor patrons from harmful sexual materials is not only legitimate, but compelling. I'll repeat that, quote, a library's interest in protecting its minor patrons from harmful sexual materials is not only legitimate, but compelling. Therefore, we are able and must establish local standards which will not look like those in San Francisco or even Fairfax County. Currently, we do not have community standards in Botetourt County, but we simply accept the full authority of the library director. Unfortunately, the Library Board of Trustees does not qualify as an independent community source of input, which needs to incorporate a moral assessment in the selection or removal of books. One approach is to simply stop the acquisition of children's books that contain sexual themes. For parents who are determined to provide these materials for their own children, they are readily available and may be acquired for free from the American Library Association, which promotes these books. Within our region, the Salem Library has moved similar books out of the reach of children to an adult section. This is a positive development. To our supervisors, let's get back to work to fully resolve this issue. Thank you.
D. Graham.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Vicki Graham. I live in the Oriskany area. Supervisors White and Clinton, I would like to thank you for coming to our exhibit. That meant a lot to us that you took the time to come and just sit and talk with us. Supervisor White, you suggested that we ask rather than fight for our interests. Let me give you some examples of why we fight. Number one, early on, a group of derail members, after some effort, met with their Delegate Terry Austin. When voicing our concerns, we were told more times than I can count on one hand, the state owns the road and can do with it as it wants. Our concerns were totally dismissed. And as we got up to leave, Delegate Austin said, please vote for me in November. Number two, I was one of two members of Derail who observed at a citizens committee meeting. You know those meetings that we are told take place regularly. There have been 2 in 9 months. We knew more than those that supposedly were representing us. It was the hardest meeting I have ever had to sit through. I literally had to put my hand over my mouth. Number three, 3 members of Derail attended a trail meeting that was listed on the county calendar, fully expecting to observe only. We were allowed to sit at the table and participate. I dare say those 19 or so seemingly pro-trail government Roanoke representatives and VDOT members would not have discussed any of the truly negative issues if we had not brought them up. Again, we heard from Delegate Austin, who was there. He looked up from his phone long enough to offer the suggestion of combination locks on the gates at either end of the emergency road. And oh yes, he said, there will be cameras. This meeting was reported in the Roanoke Times on September 1st in an article entitled Trail Planning Continues. Information was provided to the reporter via email from VDOT. A paragraph from the report states, on Tuesday, Highway Department representatives and Delegate Terry Austin, Republican Botetourt, who has been a booster of the Craig Botetourt Trail, met with 2 members of the Derail group to share updates, including a potential start to construction in the winter of 24-25. Okay, would you call that spin? Truth said in a way to cause you to believe an untruth? And they make it look like they reached out to us. That is not what happened. And they couldn't even get the number of Derail members right. There were 3, not 2. Recently, Delegate Austin told members of the General Assembly that there is a group of 14 or 15 people that have issue with the trail. He said he sees no issue. After the VDOT Citizens Information Meeting, he can no longer hold to that number. I feel like I spend a lot of time correcting misinformation. My statement here was intended to set the record straight. Hopefully, I can move on to something more productive from this point. Maybe even something that you as board members can engage in. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica McGuire.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for kindly hearing my concern. I am from the Valley District and I am president of the Cypress Court HOA community. I am speaking on behalf of the 39 homeowners in our community. Now, we know from VDOT that the culvert under our driveway entrance is our liability. What we want to contest is the excessive recent runoff and watershed issues our community is being asked to process. For 12 years or more, our community never had a problem with our culvert. All we had to clean up was the normal runoff and flow from the communities above us. But beginning sometime around 2018, we started to notice the runoff was no longer normal. there were huge mud flows that started coming when we got heavy rainstorms. And those began to deposit huge dumps of sand, silt, and mud from the communities above us and across Sanderson Drive, mainly Highland Manor, because that's where the sinkhole was. Our HOA paid a little over $20,000 out of our HOA dues to clean up the excess sand, mud, silt, and other debris. Some of the homeowners could not afford to pay their part of assessment in one lump sum. We did that assessment in 2020. The last payment for some of those homeowners is this month or next month that could not afford to pay in a lump sum. But here's the problem. We got dumped again with as much or more that we cleaned out in 2020. And it became obvious that the excess mud flow was coming from the sinkhole that was opening up or had opened up on Highland Drive. The people in Highland Manor were not responsible for the repair of the sinkhole. So why should Cypress Court be responsible for the debris that washed down to us from the sinkhole? And we're continuing to get a little more than what is normal, even with the repair of the sinkhole. So it makes me feel like there could be another problem that you're not aware of. It has been coming for several years as the pipe under Highland Manor had broke and the water was going underground and causing a sinkhole to open up. So when the sinkhole was filled in, VDOT trucked in many truckloads of dirt and sand to fill the hole. And our question is, why did VDOT not get the dirt that accumulated on our property from the sinkhole and continues to accumulate every time we get a heavy thunderstorm? Or why did they not put a process in place to contain the mud flow until they completed the project of repairing the sinkhole? We are not asking you to fix our culvert. We're asking you to help with the excess amount of dirt that we are continuing to be required to remove again and again and again. And this is going to be an ongoing problem for that community unless we get help. And the members of Cypress Court are not able to keep doing this again and again and again. Thank you.
Jessica, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And please stay here for just a little while. Donna Smith?
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Donna Smith, and I'm representing the Cottages of Steeplechase Homeowners Association. I have two other members with me from the board members as well, but I'm the one designated to speak. We are seeking assistance from the Botetourt County Board of Supervisors to potentially expedite the process of incorporating our 3 private streets into the VDOT system. Responsibility for these private roads currently belongs to the First Bank of Virginia. However, at some point in the future, these roads will be the responsibility of the Cottages of Steeplechase HOA, if not incorporated into the VDOT system. The Board of Directors of the Cottages of Steeplechase Homeowners Association have been told that no inspection report was ever filed for these 3 roads. Due to this fact, Botetourt County and First Bank of Virginia hired ECS Mid-Atlantic in August 22 to obtain core samples from various areas of the roads. This request was to determine the pavement depths and CBR tests for the private roads. Interpretation of the report from ECS Mid-Atlantic dated September 22 indicates that the core samples were more than adequate to handle the anticipated average daily traffic that these roads would experience. The HOA Board of Directors has considered 3 facts concerning our roads. First, Primrose Court, Sunrise Lane, and Carrington Court were all completed at the exact same time and in the exact same manner as Teresa Lane. Second, Teresa Lane has already been accepted into VDOT. Third, the ECS Mid-Atlantic report indicates favorable core sample results on the 3 private streets. These 3 facts are evidence to our board of directors that all of these streets most likely meet VDOT standards. Based on these facts, the board of directors of the Cottages of Steeplechase are requesting that Primrose Court, Sunrise Lane, and Carrington Court be incorporated into the VDOT system. As always, we appreciate any support and guidance from the county that you may be able to provide us in our efforts. Thank you in advance for your careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, for coming. Again, stay for just a little while if you would. Next is Jim Stanley.
Good afternoon. Name is Jim Statlander in Fincastle District. My new address is Craig Botetourt Trail, 2 miles down from Oriskany Square. Hang a right and go into the woods. Kind of sounds like I'm a homeless person, huh? Like to thank Mr. Clinton and Amy White for coming to this, our exhibit. Were any of yous at the VDOT meeting? I know Amy was. Were you, Steve? Any others? No others.
But we did manage to get in a few questions after his official time was up. But his memory of being on our supervisor on this very board 20 years ago, when this issue was brought up before, was a blank. We also presented him with over 800 signed petitions just to prove there is more than 14 or 15 that take issue with this trail. He is apparently becoming senile, and it is time for him to go. At a recent CIM meeting held by VDOT, we met Rachel Jones, Deputy Secretary of Transportation from Richmond. Her statement to us is, this is not a done deal. In our display, we presented 2 pans of gravel. One person stated that the large gravel in the pan couldn't be from the road. He said, that is a tire buster gravel. I told him you didn't need to tell the people driving there every day because they all experience many flat tires. Rachel Jones overheard our conversation and asked where I got that information. I replied it was from VDOT in their trail information. Question, will any upgrades be made to the shared secondary routes to better accommodate trail users such as signage, paving, widening, or dust control? Answer, paving and widening of the existing secondary road is not currently planned. Appropriate signage will be included. So I say to all the trail enthusiasts, beware. This will be like no other trail you have ever been on before.
Andrea Smith.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Smith from Amsterdam. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they did or what they're doing. That's been many of our prayers since the end of July. In the Bible, God was gracious and sent prophets and judges to warn people of their sin and wrongdoings, that they would repent from their wicked ways to prevent judgment. And he is also using his people to do the same in this context, as we are advocating that you repent and make a change in your most recent decision of approving sexual perversion and child pornography in the children's section of the library. Many of us gave the board the benefit of the doubt that you would be upstanding leaders, at the very least making compromise of moving this criminal literature out of the children and adolescent section of the library. Instead, we were appalled. Let it be on the record that we are for the library, as many accusations say that we are not. We are in full support, but we are not in support of this agenda. We want to obey God, respect and honor his creation and teaching of sexuality, protect children from grooming, confusion and abuse, and we want things to go well for you, as you are accountable to God in being leaders and representatives of the people, we the people under God. We want leaders who are not negligent in protecting children from crimes. Child pornography is a crime. Some demented people pass the obscenity exemptions in libraries and public schools for an agenda to sexualize and desensitize children, brainwashing them to think it was okay and normal for children and siblings to sexually experiment with each other, for boys to pursue boys, girls to pursue boys, for an older man to grope a young boy or to penetrate a young girl, eliminating all boundaries, biblical laws, and ethical standards. Concerned citizens consisting of parents, grandparents, church leaders, and professionals have made excellent arguments stating psychological, mental, emotional, relational, and physical facts about the destruction of over-sexualization of children and sexual grooming perversion. And we've spelled out the end goal of this movement to normalize sexual crime and offenses. As of May 2023, an American is sexually assaulted every 93 seconds, and that's based on reports. And most sexual reports aren't even reported. 20% of rapes are reported, and the statistics are silencing. We have told you that pedophiles are being renamed as minor attracted persons, and we have told you that the United Nations is calling for decriminalization of pedophilia, underage sex, and trafficking. So let me spell this out. It's saying that it's okay for adults to rape children. They're saying it's okay to abuse anyone at any time, at any age, with a goal of having no protection and no laws to bring order and justice. The underlying agenda is to teach children through picture books and printed instruction that it's okay for anyone to touch you at any time. It is to strip and steal innocence away for the evil, heartless agenda of predators turned over to utter depravity. I beg you not to play a part in this. We, the people, are not going to be silent as our representatives choose negligence over children's safety, over natural and biblical laws, over how creation was designed and created to work. We beg you not to get deceived here. We share facts, and yet all those intelligent arguments have been ignored, and the only rebuttal is to misconstrue the term book banning, which libraries are removing, or should I say banning, in their own collection books prior to 2008 because they're not inclusive, culturally responsive, relevant, or accurate. My question is based on who? Next, will the Bible, Thomas Jefferson, C.S. Lewis, Martin Luther, and the classics, historical figures be removed as well? Some may say it's not happening here in Botetourt County. Maybe the Bible isn't removed yet, but we are promoting and celebrating mental health disorders regarding gender dysphoria, homosexuality, and adult on child sexual crime. My last question is this. At what point is it dangerous, harmful, and abusive in your eyes? Is there a board standard? How far do we have to go downward as a society to say that enough is enough? So as I began today, I am begging you to be the upstanding, righteous leaders you can be by the grace of God. Repent, seek the Lord, and make changes to do good and not harm so that it may go well for you and all the children affected. Thank you.
Ann Palmer.
My name is Ann Palmer. I live in Fincastle, and I'm here to attempt to follow up. That was beautiful. First, also, I'd like to say we're not against the libraries. That's one of the first things someone told me this afternoon, in fact. Oh, you're one of those people who didn't like the library. I love the library. I sang the praises of the library at the last library meeting. We are for the libraries. Our communities need the libraries. That is not our agenda. We are against the sexualization of children, which is what you just spoke about. If we could have a conversation like eye to eye, all of you guys looking at me and Miss White, I would love to understand, thank you, why. But why do you want these books? Of all the thousands of books that are in the library, why do you want books that show a boy giving a boy a blowjob, men in bed kissing? Why? How does that edify anyone? I think that's what we would love to understand from you. Why do you want that? These are children. I mean, if you have something, if you can help me, I would love that. I would love some understanding because I have so many things I'd rather be doing that I need to be doing than coming here and feeling like I'm banging my head against a wall. I feel like what happens is we speak and the rails to trails people speak and you look, maybe you don't look, you take notes and then it's done. There's no, I don't know who you talk to. I don't know if you call someone who's running the groups and just say, hey, look, we got together and we're considering what you said, but there's just nothing. I feel like when we leave, it's just, okay, next meeting, we're gonna have to hear from them again. And you will. We're gonna keep coming because we have a responsibility. It is so crazy to think you guys are prayed for. What she's saying is not untrue. I pray for you. I pray for you like you're my brother or my children or my father. We are spending our energy on you because we do want things to go well for you. You have a God-given conscience. Every person alive has a conscience, but you all are searing yours. I don't know who's pushing you or pulling you or threatening to defund you or what it is, but open your hearts. I mean, honestly, truly open your hearts and look at what you are giving your stamp of approval to. Images that children do not need to see. I'm just going to read a verse to you all from the Bible. For we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of men. And that's from 2 Corinthians 8:21. We're just going to keep coming. We're not going to stop, not because we don't care about you, not because we don't pray for you, but because we care about the children. Thank you.
Very good. Whitley? Gary Whitman? Okay. Let's move on to number 4. Gary? Yes.
I forgot my hearing aids. Thanks for letting me make some comments. I want to take this opportunity to tell y'all that I think you have a mind-boggling idea with that trail over in Eagle Rock area. It's outstanding when you start looking at it. And if you just think for a few minutes, it just goes everywhere with you. I've left some documentation at Parks and Rec about Day Tripper magazines. And if you look at that, you'd understand about a lot of people like to take little day trips after they've walked, and like Humpback Bridge. I left one for Virginia Wildlife that has the first African American resort in the United States. It's over there at Longdale Furnace, just a few miles from Eagle Rock. So there's history with Native Americans, there's history with Africans, there's history with the Irish, and all the rest of us through there. The railroads, the bateaus, the the locks levels. When they would start on when they get this trail going, you're going to have bicycle shops at Eagle Rock and probably Newcastle. You'll have vans transporting walkers and bicyclists up and down the trail for the sections they want to walk on. You'll have people with parking their horse and trailers and riding your horses. My job was a soils person. I was out in Abington 2 or 3 days a week for about 25 years. I was on the Creeper Trail back when it had the railroad on it. I'd ride on the railroad up Mount Rogers to fish. But I was out there probably 150, 200 times over the years. There was very little trash, very little crime. I noticed a lot of families with strollers, people laughing, having a great time. I talked to horseback riders because my daughters were in 4-H horse programs here in Botetourt. I did a lot of bicycling. I talked with them. And so I would always be checking with people. I did not know of any crimes or of trash out there. And I just started looking through this. This is on iron ore. When they have those iron races, this would actually be one that took place in the iron ore area. This would really be an Iron Man. It's really something. Trail maps, they now have them out for counties that have all the trails in the county, even like going up Mill Mountain, going to a star, going up Bottom Creek to waterfalls, going up Lake Moomaw. They have them everywhere. We need them. The vans would also be having delis. The monkey tunnels. I was able to see a monkey tunnel while I was mapping soils in Botetourt in the 70s. We were going over into the Highlands area, landfill, and they'd cut a monkey tunnel, which is how they used to hunt the iron ore. And the Irish would get on their knees and dig a tunnel all about like that and carry it out with buckets. It'd be moved, the soil be moved out from bucket and everything. This has tremendous history in it. It has tremendous development in every way. I could see a welcome center being built here in Delville, a small one, to welcome people and send them out on these day trips. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can move on to number 4 here for the consent agenda. Everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at that. Do I hear a motion approval for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And if we can go to the approval of transfers and additional appropriations, Mr. Zarella.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and all in attendance. For the month of September, there is one transfer request, which is a transfer of budgeted debt service funds to the capital project fund. With respect to appropriation requests, there are 8 pass-through items and 1 regular appropriation being requested. Pass-through items 1 through 8 represent pass-through of state grant funds, expenditure reimbursements, miscellaneous receipts and credits, contract payments, donations, and contributions. Appropriation item number 9 is for payment of an unemployment claim. It is respectfully requested that this transfer and appropriations be approved by the board. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Mr. Zarella?
Chairman, if there's no questions, I'll move for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Zarella, approval of accounts payable and ratification of short account.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Total expenditures being requested for approval for September for the general fund, including debt service and all other funds, is a combined $1,607,559.24. Payable disbursements of note for the month are as follows: under technology services, $83,210 paid to Tyler Technologies for annual cost of tax application services. Also under technology services, $55,434 paid to Harris Enterprise for annual fees for enterprise software modules. Under animal control, $44,501 paid to She Auto Stores for a 2023 Ford F-150 Super Crew responder. Under sports complex, $27,423 paid to Sportiflex for field fencing. Under community organizations, $46,929 paid to Visit Virginia Blue Ridge for the second quarter support payment for FY24. Under transfer to EDA, $136,434 paid to Economic Development Authority of Botetourt County as pass-through state retainage grant funds portion for the VATS High Botco Lumos Broadband Project number 1. And finally, under CIP Radio Replacement Program, $31,320 paid to Morcom International for contracted services performed for that project. Are there any questions or comments related to the accounts payable expenditure request for the month of September?
Any questions from the board, Mr. Zilla? If no questions, I ask for motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Zilla.
Thank you.
Let's go to number 7, resolution designating October 22nd to 28th, 2023 as Red Ribbon Week. Mr. Ruru.
Mr. Chair, board members, guests, certainly do appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is the resolution designating October the 22nd through the 28th as National Red Ribbon Week. For the 31st year, citizens of the Roanoke Valley and surrounding areas are asked to take stand against drug use and risky behaviors through observation of Red Ribbon Week. The Roanoke Area Youth Substance Abuse Coalition and the Blue Ridge Behavioral Health Care have requested the Board of Supervisors to proclaim October 22nd through the 28th as Red Ribbon Week. And they have several events scheduled for this time period, and would ask that you authorize the adoption of the resolution and move forward with that. Just as an aside to that, John Alexander and myself actually just recently went to Abington on opioid abatement, which has something to do with this as well. So we visited with folks in Abington and all across the state associated with drug use and abuse. And as part of the proposal writing efforts that we have undertaken to actually get some additional funding for those projects, I asked Chief Ferguson for some data that was associated with Narcan applications, and I just thought that that would be interesting for the board to understand. Narcan is used as one of the agents to actually help people that have overdosed. And we may not think of that on a daily basis about that, but it is an indicator of how much usage there actually is in the area. And since January the 1st of 2020, I think that Fire EMS has actually used 321 doses of Narcan in all forms and all across the community. It could be from parking lots. It could be the soccer mom. It could end up being the church goers. It is an insidious problem. And I would certainly appreciate the National Red Ribbon Week just to remind folks that we do have a problem and that we recognize that and that we are working to try to resolve that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. In front of us, we have the authorizing of the adoption. Do I have a motion? I'll second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. If we can, let's go ahead and do number 8, Chief. Resolution designating October 8th to 14th as a fire prevention.
Good afternoon again. Before you is a proclamation that we have drafted for our annual month that really commensurates with this week of fire prevention. It's the National Fire Protection Association's week that we proclaim and do a lot of activities. One point of note for this year, the theme is cooking safety starts with you. And so that's the theme that we'll be working on with education in the elementary schools and throughout the community. We have lots of events planned, working with our partners at the school system. One thing different and new this year is we forecasted ahead a little bit and reached out to the school system about a fire safety art contest. So that is already underway. I believe the deadline is next week so that we can have an evaluation of all the art submitted. We did ask the public school system and got raving reviews to participate in that from the arts department. But we also reached out to our homeschool coordination partners to see if there were homeschool children that would like to participate as well. So we're working on some of the details there, but ultimately what we hope to do is have some judging of the artwork and select some winners and bring them before you all, but also host them for a meal at the fire station as part of our efforts this year to encourage fire safety. So as always, we try to do our best to prevent the fires. And just for your edification, cooking fires are the #1 cause of residential home fires. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Chief? No questions. We need to authorize this proclamation.
I move that we do so, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We can go down to the 3 o'clock public hearing. Proposed ordinance and amendment to the Botetourt County Code. Taxation of solar energy generation facilities. Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, before you have a draft amendment to the Botetourt County Code for the taxation of solar energy generation facilities. This amendment was advertised and published in the local newspaper for a hearing this afternoon. And we would ask that you conduct that hearing, and following the hearing, that if the board sees fit, that you adopt these amendments effective immediately. Virginia law allows localities to tax solar generation facilities similar to other public service corporations, and that's what these amendments would achieve. Mr. Lockaby, your counsel drafted these amendments for your consideration, and if you have any questions, I'm sure he or I would do our best to answer them.
Any questions from the board? If no questions, I move for the adoption of the proposed amendment to the Botetourt County Code to add section 23, the public hearing, excuse me, I'm sorry. Can we open a public hearing here? Thank you. Nobody here to speak? Close, oh my goodness. Sorry about that.
Okay, can you guys just clarify? You are going to be taxing facilities that are generating solar power? What is it that you're going to be taxing?
You want to answer that question?
Go, somebody answer it.
Hold on a second. I need to turn on my microphone. Yeah, this is a tax to, this is to tax small solar generating facilities. So solar generating facilities are subject to taxation at different rates and using different assessment methodologies depending on who owns them and how large they are. As a general proposition, and there are unfortunately exceptions to everything in the world of solar and battery storage, but in general, facilities below 5 megawatts are exempt from local taxation unless we adopt an ordinance making them subject to taxation. State code allows us to make them taxable at the real estate rate, which means that they would effectively be taxable at the same rate as other public service corporation property. However, they remain mostly exempt from taxation, 80% exempt their first 5 years, 70% the next 5 years, and 60% from year 11 until their final retirement. But on that value that it is not exempt from taxation, it would be taxed at the real estate rate in the same manner as other public service corporation property.
And where at in the county do we have a solar facility that you would be taxing under this new ordinance?
So we'll be discussing that later on here.
So am I getting the understanding that you need to pass to be able to tax the facility that's going to be possibly going in Buchanan? So you need to get permission to tax it first before you pass it. Is that what's going on here?
I think, oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I believe while they're related, they're separate issues. This tax issue is before you for your consideration regardless of any particular facility proposal. But should a facility ever locate in county, then if this tax were on the books, then it would apply to such a facility.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we had anybody else here to talk? Then we'll close the public hearing. And then the other thing is we had the motion for the adoption of the proposed amendment. I'll make that motion. And do I hear a second? Second. Any comments, questions? If none, all in favor?
I will abstain is best.
And if we can go to number 9. We'll talk about the discussion of Greenfield street safety. Mr. Clinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an issue that goes back several years. Greenfield Street, of course, is the street that runs from 220 just south of here, eastbound to Trinity Road. And it's been under siege for several years because of development around it. It basically is a southern boundary, more or less, to Ashley Plantation. And there have been at least 3 proposed new developments along Greenfield Street during the last couple of years. Each proposal generated a lot of comments from residents in terms of safety, traffic safety, and pedestrian safety. The need for sidewalks, the earnest conclusions by residents that the speed limit is either too high or not sufficiently enforced. So, and this has come up at each one of the last three proposed new developments. VDOT has done a traffic study, did one some time ago. And it determined that the existing speed limit, which is 35, is appropriate. Residents report damaged mailboxes, for example, traffic running into mailboxes because it's a relatively narrow road. Danger to pedestrians. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic from the homes along Greenfield Street to the pool, for example. So children walking along the road. So just some long existing concerns about safety on Greenfield Street. Been a lot of discussion about it. We did, as is in our package, we worked with Delegate Austin to make sure that we're getting the attention that we think we deserve from VDOT, and we are. The letter that's in our package indicates that and gives good evidence that the speed limit is correct, 35 miles per hour. And more enforcement would be helpful. Not to say enforcement hasn't been adequate. It has been. We've had mobile speed limit signs and so on, but the problem still exists. So VDOT has suggested that we fix additional signs that say additional $200 fine at each existing speed limit sign on Greenfield Street. VDOT will pay for the installation of those signs. So that's what this is all about, requesting in order to do so, in order to install those signs, we need Board of Supervisors approval. And that's what I'm asking for.
So that is the motion.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll make
second
that
that
in the
motion.
form of a motion that we ask VDOT to proceed with the installation of $200 fines, additional 200 from the standard fine
And
along Greenfield Street.
those signs would go on those signs would go on the existing speed limit signs.
That's correct. Yeah, there's not new signs in the ground, but just affixed to the existing posts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clinton.
Yes, sir.
If we can go to the VDOT monthly report.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'll go through the monthly report and then see if there's any questions. Our resurfacing contracts continue to come through. Most of the paving is done in Botetourt County for the year. As I stated, there may be some surface treatment left to do. They sometimes save those for last. As for the traffic engineering work orders, we had 2 left on the list. Both of those have been addressed, or at least they've responded. As it stated, the crosswalk pedestrian signal at Delville Town Center, they recommend that nothing be changed at the time right now, but it is at least planned to be included in what we call HSIP spot projects, where HSIP is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So it's federal funding that's used for safety improvements. And what they would do is package that with several other intersections just to make it worthwhile for a contractor to bid on, not just one intersection, but several, maybe around not just this county, but several other Roanoke County and neighboring counties. No guarantees that would get funding, but they will include that in there. As for the other one for Old Hollow and Trevi, traffic engineers were completed the review and they don't really recommend any changes at this time. Land development, we had several land development projects under review. If you have any questions about those, please let me know. We've several permits issued in the last month. We have been doing some contract mowing, although that's the second round is done. And for our planned routine maintenance work, we graded some gravel roads and again, like I said, mowing some secondaries, brush removal. We've got a lot of that going on, some pipe installations and replacements. We've been doing quite a bit of that with some of the additional funds that the Commonwealth Transportation Board has given us for the year. Aside from that, it's just general maintenance as as normal, and of course, preparing for what we don't want to see is the snow for later if we get any. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Blue Ridge.
No.
Potholes on 460. Okay.
Eastbound one.
Okay.
Good guess.
Thank.
You're very welcome. I think so. I believe it's done. I haven't been up in there in a while, and I haven't talked to our permits inspector, but I haven't heard anybody say anything about it, but I'll check.
Yeah, I think that's over. So thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Amsterdam.
No, sir.
Okay.
What's the update on Back Creek Road? That's part of the 6-year.
It's nearly complete.
Awesome.
We did have a mishap with a contractor truck. It rolled over into the stream. So we had to skip a section of the paving while they were removing the truck. We're going to go back and fix that. And we do have to do some remediation because it did impact the stream. It didn't damage it too bad. And there was only a very small amount of diesel spill. But there are some things we'll have to do there, but it's nearly complete.
Awesome. And then the 3 issues that I had brought up, if you have any updates on Pico, Nace, or the exit ramp on 168, the southbound exit ramp from 81. I brought
Right,
that up
and I
last
believe,
month.
I was thinking that Pico and Nace had already been completed. I know that one of them you were concerned about intersection. I think they went in and fixed some stuff there. Robin?
So all the shoulder work there is complete.
And Richardson. We looked a little closer at the ramp at 162 and
168.
168, I'm sorry, 168. And unfortunately, we just didn't think that there could be much of a change there. At least that was my discussion with Robin, since I wasn't here last month. But we feel like it kind of is where it is. But if there's something in particular that we could look at for like traffic engineering or something, we could have them look at it. But we review those fairly often, especially for interstate ramps, especially if there's any type of crash or safety problem. So I would think they'd already looked at it, but I mean, again, if there's something particular.
It's just really hard to see traffic coming from the left when you come up that exit because the bridge is much higher than the ramp.
So the northbound off ramp.
The southbound off ramp.
Okay, so
South.
the parapet wall is blocking it slightly. I've noticed that before, but if I pull up enough, I can usually see around
And
it.
some people don't, we get a lot of people that just pull out, they're in the middle of the road before they realize they need to stop. It is hazardous for those of us who cross that bridge every day. So anything you could look, any signage, I thought might help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Valley District here. Couple things that you've heard.
I was thinking, I made notes.
So and I get to see these both. And I've got to talk to both these individuals, and I'm so glad they stayed here because I think it's important that we realize that dirt does come over. And it starts way above, which is VDOT's property that comes into their culvert. So they're not asking for everything, but they are asking for help. And I think if we can go ahead and try to put something together for Cypress Court, that would be just amazing, that we can help them out. These individuals, there's 39 homes that are there. And there is a lot that I see on theirs.
He's okay.
So there is a lot of debris that flows over from my area in Highland Manor, as well as some of the other areas that are going down into there because it's filtering right in there. The other thing that you need to look at, I would like, is to see the erosion that's happening, that pretty soon the road's going to start going. So we need to take a look at that as well. So I kind of implore if we look at VDOT to really seriously look at this situation, help these individuals out. I don't think it's that difficult to help them in what their goals are. So I would be happy to be there, happy to meet with you, whatever we can do to make this satisfactory. Now, that being said, do you have any answers to those?
Not really at this moment. I couldn't attest to whether everything is deposited at their culvert is ours. Obviously, VDOT doesn't own the water. We just transport it from one side of the road to the other. The residents, it's a private street. I was here when that private street was approved. It was approved a private right of way for a private street for the HOA to maintain that. We can look and see what options we have. The 100%, I don't say no right off, never do. But there are some limitations there. Obviously, environmental permitting for us that could take quite a while to help actually remove material from the stream, especially in a culvert that's not ours.
What is there a possibility to make that VDOT approved? And what would it take to do so?
To make that a public roadway? There is a possibility. If any of you that I don't recall how many of you were on the board when we did it, British Woods was added to the system, even though it's a private road. I don't know what the new code section is, but it was 55-50.4 at the time. It's been recodified. I don't remember what that new number is. I remember the old one though. And it requires the right of way to be converted to public through a plat change. And every resident on the road has to sign off on the donation of that right of way back to public. And then the board, of course, would have to want that, realizing the fact that a past board, similar to cottages at Steeplechase, approved those private roads as private. Because I was here, or at least down the hall, and covered that project when Mr. Overbay stood up and requested that all roads and cottages at Steeplechase be private, and the board and planning commission required at least Teresa Lane to be public. So VDOT didn't ask for it to be private, the developer did, and the county approved it. Again, there are ways to move it forward, but VDOT doesn't participate in the change of the plat, so somebody would have to do that. And again, we don't participate in in collecting the names and people signing off on it.
Yeah, coming in, and I know you just talked about Cottage of Steeplechase here, and I know that Ashley had sent a letter out discussing this. And I don't know if she never received a copy of the report.
We don't recall receiving a copy of that ECS report unless it was sent to Ray directly. Ray's retired and his emails are gone. If for any reason he would have gotten it and did not forward it out, I don't know, because I didn't move into this position until 22 or February 22. And I think they said that was done prior to that. No doubt that those were built at the same time. As the rest of the roadway and the rest of the neighborhood. In fact, Mr. Overbay started constructing stuff before it was finally approved. So, and that happens at times too, but we do actually we don't inspect, but we do at least observe the construction of the roadways that we'll maintain, which was not done for those private streets. We wouldn't have observed those. We wouldn't have had any reason to. But again, if there's inspection reports and information that we can review, that would be helpful, at least when it comes to anything that has to be done to make sure those streets are acceptable.
And I think Ashley is asking if we could just to, the best to meet in person and discuss probably the best for the HOA president as well as another representative.
Yes, we would. I think that would be helpful for everyone to understand the process, understand the fact that, again, those are accepted as private originally. There are ways around that, but it's not intended to be a simple process, and it does give developers a free out. I mean, we do have to understand that they do private neighborhoods because they don't have to do the inspection, and then citizens buy a house on a private road, understanding the fact that the value of the home is probably a little less because they have to pay into an HOA to maintain those roads, and then when they become public, there's an automatic appreciation there. Because they're on a private road and they pay less than the HOA fees because of that.
So what we'll do is I'll get together with Donna and see if we can't, Ms. Smith, and see if we can't get a meeting set together.
That'd be great.
As well as with Jess McGuire and another representative there. All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You can go back if you want to. But Thank you.
Unless you just want to stay.
Yeah. So I know we have a 3:30, but we can go to number. I know it's going to take a little time here. Sarah, if we could go to number 11. Sarah Rogers.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I am Sarah Rogers, Fincastle Branch Manager, but I'm also the Chair of the Botetourt County VA 250 Committee. So I wanted to give you just a quick refresher and some context for our guests. In 2020, the General Assembly established the Virginia American Revolution 250 Commission to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and the independence of the United States. The goal of the commission is to facilitate a Commonwealth-wide commemoration and celebration in communities that define Virginia. Excuse me. In August 2022, Chair of the State Commission, Delegate Terry Austin, requested that Botetourt County form a local VA 250 committee to support education and commemorative events in Botetourt. In November 2022, you all passed a resolution in support of participating in the VA 250. And we did form a local committee. It's an ad hoc body. It is not a registered 501c3 or corporation, has no legal existence, authority, or ability to receive or expend funds or to take in-kind donations. In August 2022, another organization, a 501c3 in Botetourt, was formed. It's the Botetourt Preservation Partnership Incorporated. Their mission is to facilitate collaboration between local historic and preservation entities to protect and promote the history of Botetourt County. It is desirable that the county's 250th committee, the VA 250, be able to receive tax-free donations, both cash and in kind, and there is significant overlap in the membership of the current VA 250 committee and the Botetourt Preservation Partnership. So in the interest of eliminating duplication of effort, and its established relationships throughout the county, it's recommended that the board consider dissolving the Botetourt County 250 Committee and designate the Botetourt Preservation Partnership Incorporated as Botetourt County's official VA 250 committee. The partnership is agreeable to this and it's serving in this capacity. Since the Botetourt Preservation Partnership is a younger organization and many of the grant opportunities are matching grants, it's also recommended that an amount not to exceed $10,000 be appropriated from the county's general fund undesignated fund balance for the purpose of matching grant funds awarded to the partnership for activities and programming commemorating the Virginia 250. Any questions?
Any questions for Sarah?
I would question the $10,000. So isn't that kind of self-limiting? If it's matching, that sort of implies all we can do up through March 2024, I guess. But all we can do is hope for $20,000 total, I guess, 10,000 of our own that matches some that we hope to win.
Well, the grants are up to $10,000. So, I mean, it is limiting in the fact that it's for the designation for that money would be for until June 2024 potentially. But in that time, the Botetourt Preservation Partnership is working on fundraising and trying to raise their own funds to be able to match it after that.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is we ought to also be seeking grant funding, free money, you know, and there's probably a lot that are a whole lot more than $20,000, I would think.
Yeah.
So go
There,
ahead.
yeah, the VA 250 does have several different grant cycles and there will be, so there's 3 separate ones and the highest matching one is 10,000. But those are only set out at certain times of the year through the VA 250. So it's for those grants specifically. Any other grants outside of the VA 250 grants, those matching funds and things would have to come out of participating, excuse me, participating organizations.
So we're confident all we're going to be able to submit on is $20,000 grants for the Virginia 250.
That is what it will be in that grant cycle before June 2024.
I mean, it just seems like there's no harm in making it higher because we're going to refund any excess revenues anyway. So that's my only comment. It seems like 10,000 could be a bigger number with no risk to the county.
Just a question about the dissolution of the 250th committee. I know you said the partnership is agreeable to taking this on. Is the 250 committee agreeable to this dissolution?
So there's a lot of overlap in membership between the two organizations. That was one of the things that facilitated the conversation with the BPP, was because there was so much overlap, and they are favorable.
Okay, I agree with eliminating redundancy, but I didn't want to upset one group that was trying to do good work.
Right.
I
I did have a meeting with the group to tell them about this idea to see and suggest that it would be something to put before the board, and everyone present at the meeting thought it was a good idea.
Any other questions?
I'll follow up on Supervisor Clinton's grant question. I kind of agree. You don't want to put yourself in a corner. Is there opportunity to seek grants for you all that are not matching?
That very few, there is one grant in the VA 250 grant opportunities that are not matching. Most of them are.
So you could apply for that in addition to a
Correct.
$10,000, which then the county would match.
Correct.
Okay. So it could end up being more than 20 if we got them all.
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, I want to, the grants, we're asking for the 10,000 if we're awarded the grant, we will have the matching funds.
Okay.
So it would be the 10,000 matching would be through the grant process. So it would only be up to 10,000.
Right.
So, okay.
But you could apply for other grants that aren't matching as well.
Yeah, this money would be designated strictly for VA 250 grants, and only one of those is not matching.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was just thinking that matching whatever that number is a motivator for us to make an effort to submit on grants. And
Yeah.
that's why it seems like it'd be good to make it higher. Do we have grant writers or is it volunteers as part of it?
Yes, the BPP has a couple people in there that would be willing to help me write the grants. Because I'm a member of the Botetourt Preservation Partnership, and I would still be maintained as the chair of the committee.
Let me ask you just one question kind of is related to this. Is there, as time goes on, that grant may need to be exceeded more than $10,000? There'd be an opportunity to come back to the board and ask for a raise in the grant number? Or is there legal limits that you have to have?
To my knowledge, there are no limits that we have to have. So, I mean, yeah, the potentiality is there. This is more the thought process being, since it is a younger organization and they haven't built up their coffers yet, that potentially this could help with the matching until they build that up.
Okay.
So do you have a budget? Do you know about what you might need to spend?
Well, all of the grants are open to other localities and other committees in the state. So it's a competitive grant. And we have each one there are different designations. So one of them is worth, I think, 4,500 matching. Another one is 5,000 matching, and one is not a matching grant, which is a lower amount for marketing.
Well, I'm kind of asking about your organization's budget for the 250th celebration. Is there an idea about how much that's going to cost, or do you know?
At this point in time, the VA 250 met when it was with the county. We've only met several times. And so we were in the process of planning and programming, so we don't have that specific budgeted item. A lot of this will come down to the events that we can plan cooperatively together as part of the BPP. And once we can get like performers and, reenactors or historical interpreters, musicians, things like that, then we can actually have a clearer idea of like specifically how much one event would cost. And the goal is that we will have smaller events leading up to a large kickoff event in July 2025, and then have a year of events. So that's kind of where our programming goals are, but we don't have the specific budgeted amount because we're still in that planning phase, since 2026 is still a little less than 3 years away.
When do you need to apply for the grant? The
So
matching
the
grant?
next cycle comes up at the beginning of next year. So it'll close in March of 2024.
Sarah, there's a lot of information that you've given us right here, and I really appreciate it during one of these meetings or, a quarterly thing that if you guys meet quite a bit, that you come back and talk to us and give us an update.
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic. I think keeping us up to date with what's happening.
Absolutely. Would love to.
All right. Anybody have any other questions? If not, then we have to do two things here. One is dissolve the ad hoc Botetourt 250 committee and appoint the Botetourt Preservation Partnership to serve in Botetourt County 250 committee. Do I have a motion? So. And a second?
So, second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
And the second part is appropriate amount of not to exceed 10,000 from the county's general fund, undesignated fund balance, the Botetourt Preservation Partnership, included into match grant funds. Do I hear a motion? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. If we can move to number 18, 330, health insurance renewal. Mr. Mormon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's that time of year again. The county's group health plans will renew December 1st of this year. And in working with the county's consultants, One Digital, we have included in your packet recommendations for group insurance benefit renewals. Mary Jones with One Digital is with us remotely, and she has a presentation that she would like to share with you to go over the results of the past year as well as the proposed renewals. And I won't steal her thunder, but we've had another good year. We've got a very reasonable renewal proposal for your consideration. I've been doing this long enough to have a little PTSD about insurance renewals and the kind of sticker shock that you can have from one year to another. But I'm pleased that we're able to come before you today with another good year's experience and a good renewal proposal. So if Mary is on, and Mary, if you're available, I'll turn it over to you. Okay.
Can you all hear me, Mr. Mormon? This is Paula Pratt. I'm with One Digital. Sitting here in hopes that Miss Mary Jones will join us. But I'm able to go over the presentation if you all would like me to. Can you all hear me?
Well, for the sake of time, if you would like, I can overview the renewal and answer general questions you have if they're able to hop in and provide more detail. Oh, there we are. Paul? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's agreeable,
Yeah,
we'll just
please.
proceed, and I'll do the best I can. As I said, we've had good renewal. Next slide, please. Are you controlling or am I? Okay. Okay, great. All right. So they've provided an executive summary here, information on medical and pharmacy premiums, dental premiums, and recommendations for your consideration. And just by way of the executive summary, You may recall that our current coverage is with MedCost, is our third-party administrator. They process and adjudicate all of our medical claims. Kroger Prescription Plans is our prescription drug insurance provider. Berkeley Group is our reinsurance carrier. They insure us against catastrophic claims. And overall, our medical and pharmacy renewal is for a 4% increase. So we would recommend a renewal with those three groups, and we would also recommend holding employee premiums flat. Regarding dental, our year-to-date expenses are running in line with the previous year. We don't anticipate an increase necessary for paying claims. The carrier Delta Dental has requested a increase in their administration fee from $4.20 per employee per month to $4.35. And One Digital was able to negotiate this down from a proposed increase to $5.51. And we appreciate that. And again, the recommendation is that dental premiums be maintained at the current level and not be increased. Our vision insurance is with IMED. That's a program that we've had for a few years now. We're under a 2-year rate guarantee with them that goes through November 30th of 2027. So no changes in either care coverage or cost is proposed there. In terms of our medical renewal highlights, we've received favorable renewals for a number of years now. This is where my PTSD kicks in a little bit. I'm always worried what the next one's going to be. But you can see there on your screen, we've had 0 increases to last year. We had an over 7% decrease. And then this proposed renewal is a 4% increase. So really fantastic results in performance of our health plans. It goes, I think the credit of that is not only to really good plan design and administration, but really good habits and practices by our employee groups who are taking care of preventive issues. They're using generic drugs. They're being smart consumers of their health insurance benefits, and that makes a big difference. So overall, okay. And if Mary or Paul would like to jump in and take this over at any point, I'll let you run your own show. Overall, large dollar claims, those exceeding $25,000 are higher than the prior 2 periods. Our pharmacy spend this past year was up, and that's mostly driven by large dollar claimants. You'll recall that this year we introduced a program called script sourcing. That has saved the plan and members on the plan so far this year a little over $93,000 in prescription costs. That's been very successful and positive for us. There are 2 programs that One Digital and our other partners have brought to our attention that we'd like to recommend that you consider. One is called reference-based pricing. What this does is monitors specific drug categories that have multiple medications available, but they're equally effective clinically. And so this would be trying to utilize the most cost-effective drug with the same clinical outcome. So in other words, if I have a choice of 2 drugs and clinically they're exactly the same effect, but one is cheaper than the other, then this program would encourage the use of the cheaper drug. It's projected that this program would save the plan approximately $3,000 a year. The second program is a special alternative funding. This is through Kroger with the pharmacist concierge services. It's proposed to lower both costs for the plan as well as the patients for specific specialty medications. It covers over 600 drugs. It matches patients with alternative funding sources and or prescription drug assistance programs and foundations. Currently, in looking at our current member census, we have 2 members that potentially could benefit from this, and it could save approximately $31,000 a year based on that current census. So those are 2 programs that we would encourage enhancing our benefits with. In terms of the numbers, you see here for our medical plan, current budget, 3.4 million roughly. The proposed budget's 3.5 for a total expected increase of a little over 133,000 a year. That's the 4% that we spoke of. The county covers about 2.8 million of that premium. Currently, the new county portion will go up to just under 3 million. So the recommendation would be the county fund that increase. Later on, we're going to recommend that that be funded out of the county's health fund. That's a dedicated fiduciary fund that's set aside for health insurance benefits. And so we would recommend that be paid out of that rather than the county's general fund. The current employee portion of the premium is $540,000. And again, it's recommended that the employee premiums remain level. This gives you a detail of employee medical contributions, how much employees pay per month for benefit at various coverage levels. You see that ranges from $95 for employee only to $420 a month for a family. And then shifting to dental, you can see here what our current and proposed renewal rates are for dental premiums. Again, this benefit is offered through Delta Dental. Employee-only coverage is just under $24 a month, and employee and family is just under $70 a month. So again, our recommendations would be to renew with our current carriers on medical and hold employee premiums flat. Pharmacy, it would be to continue with the script sourcing program that's been very successful for us, and to add the reference-based pricing and the specialty alternative funding programs through Kroger. The recommendation would be to stay with Delta Dental on our dental insurance program, and again, maintain employee premiums flat, and renew with IMED for vision insurance benefits per that agreement that we have that maintains those rates flat for the next couple of years. And I guess that's the end of the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you have. If Mary or Paul are available and we can have Aldo, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions. And if they are available and there's anything they'd like to add, I'd certainly welcome them to do that.
Any questions?
So David, this was all the work of One Digital, right?
Yes, sir.
And I'm just curious, I don't remember, but I probably should. How did we get a hold of them? Are they on a multi-year contract with us? Or?
They are. We did a competitive procurement and they submitted a proposal on it. Mary may be able to tell me how many years we're currently in. I want to say this is maybe the second or so year on the current contract. And it's typically at least a 3-year contract.
3 years.
I'd have to look and see exactly, but I think it's at least 3. Yeah. It may be.
David, can you hear me?
Year or 2 for extension at our option if we'd like. But okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not a question about procurement, but how do we counsel the employees on like new benefits like the specialty alternative for certain prescriptions? How do we counsel everybody? Because it's apparent that good behavior leads to good outcomes and therefore good pricing. What touch points do we have with our employees to let them know? Because I know when I look at benefits, it's so overwhelming and a little bit daunting.
Right.
So how do we help our employees navigate what would be the best choices for them?
So during our open enrollment period, which will start in coming weeks and run till late October, sometime the 3rd week of October or so, we'll of course make all this information available. We make it available electronically. One Digital helps us put together a nice digital packet of all the information of all the benefit programs and options, the enrollment requirements, so on and so forth. Of course, MedCost is, our HR department is available to employees for questions. Since the pandemic, we have not held in-person open enrollment meetings. And we haven't really discussed getting back to those yet. But certainly we do our best to make sure information is available and people can get answers to questions. One of the things, as you all know, our benefits cover not only employees of the county administrator, but also employees of offices, Department of Social Services and others. So, that's an area.
David, can you hear me?
Concerted effort. We try to have champions, is my term, primary contacts in each of those departments that we work with and communicate and coordinate with, and who help share information throughout those departments as well.
As I know it's time and resources, but as resources allow, I think it's really important for people to have someone that they can talk to.
Yes.
Because it does get overwhelming. But thank you for looking at additional services that can benefit people.
Let me ask you a question.
David.
One of the things we had a long time ago is, the health concerns of employees, and if they exercise or stop tobacco ceasing, things that really kind of decrease their payments on a family or individual basis. Do we still have some of those that are going on presently?
Yes, we do. We have a wellness program that's been in place for a number of years now. We would, you all approved in the budget funding to continue that. That is an incentive-based program. It's a voluntary program. If employees choose to participate, they can receive up to $400 monetary reward for participating in that. And really, there are several steps to that. One is getting an annual physical exam, preventive exam. The other one is taking an online health risk assessment, and that's provided through MedCost, our third-party administrator. Another is taking educational seminars that employees can choose topics to improve their education about any particular health concerns they may have themselves or in their family, or just general knowledge. And the fourth component, it's three components.
Hey, David, can you hear me? This is Mary.
So those three are required for that reward.
Mary, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
But we also do provide gym
Yeah.
reimbursements that if persons go to a gym.
For some reason, I don't think they can hear us. I'm putting things in chat, so hopefully they can read those. Not sure what I'm doing wrong.
Fantastic. One other point, if I prescribe somebody a non-generic name brand, this is going through Kroger, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And the reason why is that sometimes those perform much better than the generics. And which I've seen that happen. So hopefully we'll get a fairly decent deal on some of those.
Yeah. And we do not, while Kroger Prescription Plans is our insurance carrier, and there are a few advantages to go into a Kroger pharmacy. We do not require employees to go to a Kroger pharmacy or any other particular pharmacy. And there is also, if generics drug is not available or it's not efficacious clinically for an employee, then they're not, there's no penalty for them using that.
It's just the prior auth my staff has to do is great.
Right.
Any other questions? I know this is not a public hearing, and I know Ms. Broccoli, if you would, after we're done here, I'd like to get together and Mr. Mormon and discuss the question. So I apologize, but we'll get to that. The number 2 is, it says authorize and award the group of health insurance plans, benefits, and premiums as recommended, MedCost. So I'm asking is, do we have a motion for authorization?
So moved.
Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
The other part is to authorize the addition to reference-based pricing and special alternative funds and programs to Kroger, County's Kroger prescription plan effective December 1st, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? And if not, all in favor?
Aye.
The other is to authorize the maintenance of active employee programs effective December 1st, 2023 at their current rates and adjust the COBRA and retiree rates as permitted by law. I'll make a motion.
Yep, second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
And last is authorize staff to execute necessary instruments upon the review and approval of with the county attorney. Any motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you all very much.
And if we can take about a 10-minute break here and then come back in for number 13. County zoning ordinance. See, one of those.
That's a tortoise.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before you tonight or this evening is an owner-initiated petition for amendments to the Botetourt County zoning ordinance to amend the parking standards to quantify the minimum number of parking spaces required for a special event facility and to create a provision that would allow a portion of the required parking spaces to be located off premises at a remote or satellite parking lot. If you'll remember from last month, we had a petition for a special events facility in the Amsterdam district. The owner of that, or the potential operator of that facility, is requesting these amendments to be able to provide shuttle services at a special event that would take place at that property. This amendment would allow the staff to take a look at that type of use, see how it would best fit in the ordinance, and then to permit that to be heard at a public hearing at the Planning Commission and the board at a later date. The intent is to take this and the petition for that special events facility in November. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. Otherwise, we request you recommend that you petition the Planning Commission to advertise for public hearing.
Any questions? If not, do I hear a motion to refer to the public hearing, Planning Commission? I'll second that. Any discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
sir. And now consideration petition and amendments to the Botetourt County zoning ordinance and then regulations related to signage.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, like John had, we have another petition from a citizen in the county requesting consideration of possible text amendments. And this amendment would be to amend the sign ordinance standards to expand the use of electronic message boards, or what a lot of people call LED signage. These petitions can be initiated by a property owner or resident of the county. And in this case, Nathan Ives, who is a local resident and is associated with a local convenience store, submitted the petition on behalf of their convenience store, pointing out that LED signs are very common in today's times and used a lot by churches, banks, and in particular gas stations where the gas prices at the convenience stores change quite frequently. And oftentimes they're not even controlled at the local level at the store, but in some corporate office off somewhere else where somebody pushes a button. And in updating signage, they would like to have the ability to use the LED gas prices, which the ordinance does not currently have an allowance for, all in all. So staff is recommending that the board refer the petition to the Planning Commission for their detailed consideration and for them to provide a recommendation as to whether the ordinance should be amended or not before it comes back to the board. At the same time, staff is recommending that the board authorize staff to also include some needed sign ordinance updates that would address the topic of content neutrality to assure that the sign ordinance would stand against the constitutional challenge as a result of a ruling in Reed versus the town of Gilbert by the United States Supreme Court that unanimously invalidated a particular jurisdiction sign ordinance and changed the world of signage for every jurisdiction across the nation. And basically what they did was they found that you can't regulate the content of the sign itself. And that's a protected form of free speech. So for example, help everybody understand, in the case, if you use the electronic message board, since that's what the petitioner was looking at, a sign ordinance can regulate whether or not to allow the use of LED signs, what districts they might be allowed in, how large or what percentage of the overall sign could be LED, but the sign ordinance should not regulate the content of the message or allow certain land uses to utilize LED signage and not others. Currently, our LED section does talk a little bit about districts, which is really good, where they're allowed. They do make mention of churches and nonprofits, which really you should not be looking at the use that you're allowing to have it, but where they might be allowed and the size and so forth. So staff would like to take that opportunity, if the board does send this petition to the Planning Commission, to make sure that our ordinance is what it needs to be. So the board at this point can authorize us to move that forward. And if you did, staff is recommending that that be scheduled for January 2024. That would give us adequate time to go through the ordinance, work with legal to make sure that we're covering all the bases when it comes to content neutrality. And then also bring up that topic of LED as to whether or not we want to be limiting or whether we want to expand its use. The board could deny the request of the petitioner, and this item would not move forward, would not go to the Planning Commission. And unless we came back with another request to kind of address the content neutrality question, that would remain unresolved for the moment. And of course, the board could also table this request and ask staff to bring back additional information for your consideration prior to sending the petition forward or not. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Drew? This is the first petition that we've received requesting a change. However, staff does get quite a few inquiries for sign permits, especially regarding convenience stores and the gas pricing. If you'll notice that there are some stores out there that do have LED, there's others that do not. Currently, the way the ordinance is written, if somebody came in and wanted to do the LED gas pricers in particular, the ordinance doesn't necessarily allow that. It only allows LED in certain circumstances and usually by a special exception permit. There are a few districts like the T&D district, I believe the shopping center district, that have the ability to provide sign standards at the time of rezoning. And certainly they could ask for provisions to be made for LED signage. But in most cases, if you have a single tenant business on a single lot, like say in B1, B2, the ordinance doesn't have a provision that allows for them to even make an SEP request or any request for LED signage. But we do get quite a few requests, especially in the gas price market.
Do you think we're behind of most other localities in the allowance of LED signage?
It is a little more commonplace, especially for the changeable copy boards, even fast food restaurants, things of that nature that like to advertise certain specials. They would much prefer to do that with a push of a button than to have, somebody go out with a pole and start manually changing letters. It's more efficient for them. So I think we probably, all in all, if you look at a lot of different jurisdictions, probably have a little bit more allowance for LED than we do. If staff were to look at a proposed amendment, we would want to make sure it was done in a very efficient way and didn't, maybe like a percentage of the overall sign that went up. But to look at it, not just carte blanche allow the entire sign to be a digital sign. But to allow people to utilize some level of LED. But at this point, we're just asking for this to be able to go forward to be looked at and then kind of work out some of the details with Planning Commission and staff before it would come back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I make one comment? I've talked to different customers that would rather have the LED instead of the manual type. And I think they feel like it would draw business to their, whatever they're selling, that would be a gas station or a grocery store, whatever. And I would love to see y'all look at that and relax some of that so that it could be given to some of the people out there that's requesting it.
Yes, sir. That's what the petitioner is asking for. And, I would say that probably 15 years ago in my career, we saw LED becoming more commonplace, probably 15 years ago. It was quite expensive at that time. And with technology and prices coming down, it is not cheap, but it's more affordable than it was before. And I think that's why we began to see more requests.
Thank you.
The signs that are currently up, I'm reading the letter, it's in the packet. So they're out of compliance. The ones that, are there some that are in compliance?
Well, certainly there are definitely some LED that's out there that would be considered non-conforming. And as long as they don't change it in any way, they can certainly continue to use it and maintain it. But if they did want to replace it or they wanted to modernize with a newer sign, maybe it's a fuel company that's rebranding from Shell to Exxon. If they want to do a new sign, then they would have to come into conformity, so they would lose the right to have the LED at this time, the way the ordinance is written.
One to ask, Mr. Chairman.
Staff would like for it to, because we know that we need to address the content neutrality of that Supreme Court case. And there are some content aspects to the current LED ordinance. So we would not want to necessarily address just allowing more LED without really addressing that broader question of content neutrality. We would not want to see the county have a challenge to its ordinance because we've told maybe a gas company that they can't put up LED gas prices, but yet the ordinance talks about a path for churches and nonprofits to ask for an SEP. If that were the case and we were challenged, there would be an opportunity there that our ordinance would be found unconstitutional, like the one in the Supreme Court case. And that would be a lengthy, costly process.
Right, but it sounds like you're more expansive than that. You're not limiting this to LED signs the way you're not limiting this to LED signs the way I interpret it.
Well, we would want to look, we know that there's a few places throughout the ordinance that content is an aspect of the sign code.
But you go beyond content is where
But mainly the content neutrality, we would want to look at the overall ordinance. Probably the most visual part of content is in that LED ordinance.
Okay,
but we
so-
would want to look at the rest of the ordinance and make sure that we were in good shape as well.
So you're not going to address signage on the sides of buildings or those ubiquitous flag signs that I think are not authorized by our, I think I'm right.
No, I don't think we're looking to go broad like a total sign rewrite at all. We're not trying to look at, the overall sign ordinance and make suggestions to change sizes, allowances, and all kinds of things like that. If authorized, staff would like to look at the content neutrality throughout the ordinance and then address the LED question of the petitioner.
So it's content neutrality, mostly focused on LED, but expanding.
But we would look throughout the ordinance to make sure we would survive a constitutional test.
Okay. And part of what I was getting at is those, I don't know, feather signs, is that what they're called? I don't think they're authorized by our code.
They
But
are
you see them
not.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Flappy ones.
Yeah. Right. And I don't find them offensive, but I just always wondered about that not supposed to have them, but there are a lot of them out there. But you're not going to look at that, whether that's a practical limitation or not.
We're not proposing to look at any kind of allowance for that. At current time, we don't have a program to where we are always out there, looking for sign violations. We do periodically, as time allows, we might work a section of a road and stop in and try to educate the different businesses on what the sign code is and ask them to actually remove things that are in violation. We do that on a fairly regular basis. We certainly will, respond to any complaints that we get on sign violations. But we don't arbitrarily just go out and spend a whole lot of time with our small staff just looking for sign violations.
Thank you.
So in front of us, the board is needing to refer the petition to the planning commission in a public hearing, understanding that the staff has recommended the public hearing be scheduled in January 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
sir. Number 15, FY 22 Shelter Upgrade Assistance Fund Grant, Chief Ferguson, excuse me.
Good afternoon again. This agenda item speaks to a grant request that we had put in through the Virginia Department of Emergency Management last calendar year, which is pass-through grant funding from FEMA as it relates to what's known as hazard mitigation. So identifying needs in the community to help prepare for and mitigate those hazards up front. This is the same grant that we received the trailer-mounted generator off of last year that is currently in Fincastle and serviceable and ready should disaster strike. This time, Emergency Manager Daniel Murray wrote the grant requesting a mobile heating and cooling unit with its own self-sustaining generator that would be trailer-mounted specifically for the purposes of maintaining heating or cooling in a facility, should that facility be without for any period of time, whether it be disaster or non-disaster related. And we have had circumstances. One particular of note that I recall is Ms. Clark had a precinct voting taking place over in Blue Ridge, and the facility's HVAC went out during the middle of the summer during that time period. So we had some abilities to help support that then very minimally. But this certainly would give us the opportunity to have a 5-ton mobile HVAC unit for cooling that would be capable of cooling about a 3,000 square foot area, as well as a 4,000 BTU propane heating unit that we could use to support heating a facility that was without heat. Now, obviously, the primary purpose would be in disaster type scenarios. But given the fact that we would have this available if we had non-disaster scenarios where this could help support a facility, we would certainly be willing to assist there as well. As part of this, I do have a reduction in the ask. It was pointed out to me before the meeting that the total did not add up, and that is correct. So it would be a $23,800.36 match that we would be requesting appropriation of local funds to make that a $70,700.36 purchase if you chose to accept the award and appropriate the funding. And I'll answer any questions that you have.
I know during the duration when that happened, it was kind of chaos and we needed about 50, 60 of those. But when you go to one of these places, they're already hooked up to hook this generator into it, or do we have to prepare that as well?
So with the mobile generator that we currently own and have ready to deploy, we've worked locally to ensure we do have the one emergency hookup that's at Lord Botetourt High School as our primary, and we're working towards closure on getting the emergency hookup at James River so that we could use that as our secondary shelter site, so that we don't have to have an on-site generator at all times, and it allows for emergency tie-in. So basically, it's a little more complex than just plug and play, but close enough, right? So that's the emergency generator component as far as electricity is concerned. We currently don't have any resource just to provide heating or cooling, and quite often in some of these disaster scenarios, it may very well be that all the facility needs to support itself is something like a cooling mechanism or a heating mechanism, especially with disasters that are occurring in the winter or the heat of the summer. Oftentimes localities throughout the country now have heating and cooling shelters, And if the building's facilities are normally, barely efficient and you put a bunch of people in there, you might need the extra support, even if the main facility HVAC is functioning to keep it cool or hot.
How does this, how do you make it work? Or maybe that.
So basically it comes with about 24 feet of duct, so flex duct. So basically you tie in, or you can use a natural opening such as a window or a doorway to create the flow path.
So you
don't have to do anything technical or have an HVAC technician come tie it in to the main system.
Fair enough.
Do the people in Botetourt County hopefully know where the disaster relief is to go to?
In the derecho, it seemed as though people did. We tried to make sure as part of our communication strategy that we're using all the different outlets in a disaster like that, and I know that social media is not the reliable pathway there. Reverse 911, which is, I guess, trademarked. So emergency notifications out of the dispatch center to both landline and cellular phones is one mechanism that we can use, as well as local radio. And we are signed up for what's known as iPause, which is the ability to broadcast an emergency message over cellular towers in our jurisdiction. Any of you that get Amber alerts on your phone, you've received an iPause message. It just comes from state police in that scenario.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion for the authorization of additional appropriation in the amount of $23,836 to support the purchase of mobile HVAC unit?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And now the resolution authorizing Blue Ridge facility lease.
Sir.
Chief Ferguson.
So this agenda item just addresses formalizing an arrangement with the Blue Ridge Volunteer Fire Department Rescue Squad Incorporated. As I'm sure you all know, with the exception of the Reed Mountain Fire Station, all of the other facilities are either owned by a volunteer incorporation, or in the case of the town of Buchanan, it's owned by the town as far as the facility. In this scenario, we have started the process about 2.5 years ago, before we were going to staff the ambulance crew in Blue Ridge, to come to a more formalized arrangement, because most of the agreements of the past have been very much memorandums of understanding or handshake type of agreements. That said, it's taken us up until this point because we've had multiple versions of this agreement. But with it being the first, certainly there was some reluctance. I've been able to work with Chief Maddox and President Mike Rock from Blue Ridge and their membership. In form as it sits, their membership voted to agree to this, and all of the terms included. That's why it's being brought forward, is they're at a place where they're happy and content with it. It does not obligate us to any additional funding. Everything that's referenced in here as it relates to funding is stuff that is already provided, as far as keeping the lights on and making sure the operations in that facility for volunteer and now the career component is taken care of. We do intend, as it speaks to, house 3 vehicles there. We already have 2 of those, the primary and the backup ambulance. And within the next 30 days, our second supervisor position, we've already got the staff for that. It's just a matter of turning the position on. We would locate a paramedic supervisor captain out of that station. They would start their shift there, and then, of course, be available for calls throughout the county, as well as do some of their office duties in Fincastle, but would go there at nighttime when they're able to catch rest and sleep at that facility. So all that is encapsulated in here, and it's been reviewed for content by legal and ready for action. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Chief? If none, so to approve the lease agreement as presented and have Authorization of Mr. Liu to affirm the lease. I hear a motion.
Motion.
Second that. Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Chief. Probably stay right there, correct? And Mr. Hinkle, the radio system update.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Matt Hinkle, your Emergency Communications Systems Manager. Wanted to take this opportunity, a little bit of an educational opportunity to go over why we've been going through this, the exercise of upgrading the radio system. Also for yourselves, also for the public to understand, what the current system is and what the deficiencies are. So I put together a small presentation here to kind of show some of the current status that we have, and Chief Ferguson can speak to the coverage issue that we will undoubtedly get to towards the end of the presentation. Okay. There we go. So as noted in some previous presentations, the system was procured and installed in 1999 as a 4-site UHF simulcast system that is still in service today. As a point of reference, the most popular cell phone in 1999 was an Ericsson A1018. Ericsson does not make cell phones anymore. So it gives you an idea how old the system is. Also in 1999, gas was $1.17 a gallon. I believe yesterday it was $3.84 a gallon. In 2013, the county did do a partial upgrade to certain technology in the system for about $500,000. Obviously, that's about 10 years ago. The best-selling phone in 2013 was the iPhone 5S, which I personally had one. But currently, the newest iPhone is an iPhone 15. And we have stayed on the same platform, only changing out some parts since 1999, about 23, 24 years. So I want to get into some of the sites, and I think pictures speak of, pictures worth 1,000 words. This is from one of our sites, but it's also indicative of all the sites. What I've got circled there in red is a Netgear switch. Now that is the switch that connects the remote site back to our prime site. So we have a simulcast system. So when somebody transmits, all 4 sites transmit at the same time. So they have to speak, they have to communicate and know when something is being transmitted. That's a commercial grade switch. It's probably been there for 15, maybe 20 years. It's not a public safety grade type of apparatus. It's commercial grade. Good thing is, if it goes down, we can go to Best Buy and get another one. But that's not what you want for a public safety mission critical grade system.
Good thing is I don't see any dust on it.
Yeah, we'll wipe that off every now and again. I didn't show you the rest of the sites. So this is our repeaters, and this is what was replaced in 2013. So they're about 10 years old. Unfortunately, they are no longer manufactured by Kenwood. We do have one spare in the system. So if one of these repeaters goes down throughout the system, now we have 7 of these at each site. So we have 28 repeaters throughout the system. If we lose one, we can pull that spare out, but pull that out, put the spare in, and they will repair now. They will continue to repair it now. We don't know when that's going to stop. Problem is, if we have 2 go down within a system of those 28, then we have to make a decision. We have to take a channel offline, or we have to take a tower offline. So what that would mean is we would pick a channel that is not used that much, maybe mutual aid, or Chief, that would probably be it. We would have to take that channel offline and use that for a spare for one of the other channels. So we would really start to grade our capacity and our capabilities if we lose just 2. And these are already 10 years old and not manufactured by them anymore. Now we could, if we wanted to, go and swap out all 4 repeaters at each site, but that's probably about $100,000. We really don't want to spend that kind of money on an old system that we're getting ready to replace anyway in the next 18 months to 2 years. This is at one of our sites. I've circled, that is an antenna for our backup repeaters. Those antennas are actually supposed to be vertical, but you can see it's got quite a big curve in it. Not exactly sure because I haven't climbed up there to see what actually happened. It may be that it's resting on that cell array above it, but obviously that is not something that you want to see in any of your equipment. And I have no idea how long that had been that way. I need to get. This is at one of our sites we had over the summer. And what you're looking at, that big dish is a microwave dish, and that commercial switch that I showed you earlier, this is the business end of it. This is a point to point. So you have that big dish on one side, and many miles away you have a dish on the other side. And that's the sole communication that tower has to be able to communicate. If it goes down for some reason, the tower goes dark. It can't communicate with the rest of the system. This is what we saw earlier this summer. It's a video that our emergency management folks were kind enough to take with one of our drones. It's a little digitized there, but you'll see as it goes down, the ones on the left, you see the nice little silver brackets holding it, are what's called a waveguide. All those brackets had broke loose. The only thing that was holding that up was the actual connection into the back of the antenna. And that particular day was quite windy. I think we were getting ready to have a thunderstorm come through, and we were really concerned that waveguide was going to go. And that particular site is on Purgatory Mountain. So the east side of the county would have gone dark for communications. The reason for that is a lot of this stuff has been up there for 20 some odd years. I've seen those clips last through hurricanes in my previous position. 110, 120 mile an hour winds and fine, but they need to be replaced and be maintained. And it's just showing the age of the system. So this next slide shows where we get in talking about some of the structures at the sites. You can see on the right, the tag from one of our shelters. It was manufactured in September of 1999. And granted, we've gotten our money's worth out of it, over the years. But on the picture on the left, you can see at some point that the structure started to fail, and they came in, and it looks like somebody came in and spray painted or painted it with a rhino lining or Linex to try to cut down on the degradation of the shelters. This is another picture. That's actually that same site. You can see on the left where that building is compromised, starting to rot out. And that's the last thing you need is water in any of your communication sites. And then the picture to the right is more just an overall view of the site itself. Here's some more pictures inside the site just to kind of show the age. The picture on the left, that's an antenna coupler that you can see the manufacture dates from November of 99. It's been in service ever since. It's well past its useful life. And then to the right, this is from the generator, and the automatic transfer switch was also from November of 1999. So now what I want to talk about is some of the coverage. And I know we spoke about this, I think in my last presentation to the board. But what we did was we went out and actually did some coverage testing and took recordings of it. So you can actually hear how the system sounds to the first responders that are out in the field. This first one, I'll play for you. Let me back out here. The first one I'll play for you is actually up on right off the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's a big grassy area that we use, or Chief, you guys use for a command post if we have any incidents that are up on the parkway. What you're going to hear is myself trying to reach out to dispatch on a portable radio, standing out in an open field with no trees around me, just standing out in the field.
One, we could barely understand you for the status. And for it's still very staticky, hard to tell the numbers and things.
As you can tell, it would be very hard to have, real communications, a real command post, to have command and control of whatever units that you're trying to oversee in that particular area. This next one, and I apologize, it's a little low on the volume. I'll try to turn it up a little bit. This is an actual event that happened in Buchanan. It's a sheriff's deputy that responded to a call. A gentleman ran from him, ran into the woods, and he ended up arresting him and taking him to jail. But you'll hear him trying to reach out to dispatch and have the and how hard dispatches have trying to communicate to him. It's a very scary situation. You don't know what the subject has. Has he got a knife? Has he got a gun? But this is what the deputies and first responders are dealing with. This one's a little bit longer, but
unable to copy. Still a little bit of static, but I can hear you better. Okay. I think 5. I guess with diesel to me, I'm not copying anything you're saying either.
so other units, even in the field next to him or close to him, couldn't understand. And obviously that's because it's going through the towers. But that's a real life example of what the first responders are dealing with on a day in and day out basis. This last one I'll play for you. This is myself standing on Little Catawba Creek Road in the middle of the road, trying to reach dispatch. This one's I want to play for you because at the end you'll hear me transmit on a mobile radio, and you'll hear the difference between a portable and a mobile. And I'll explain why that's important in a second.
Thanks, guys. You copy that truck? Just got static. Roger that, thank you. We'll be moving on to our next location.
So that last transmission was me speaking on a mobile radio from actually the emergency management truck. And the reason I wanted to point that out is in our last meeting, I pointed that we were going to be using vehicular repeaters for those areas where the portables don't work. So in this particular area, if I had a vehicle repeater, what you would have heard is what you would have heard on that mobile radio. Portable radio would talk to the vehicle and the vehicle talks back to the system. It extends the system. And that's a great example of how that would work. Beforehand, with the portable, you wouldn't hear a thing. With the mobile, you would hear it. And that's and this last one up to finish up. This is what's called DAQ, or Digital Audio Quality 3.4. And this is what we will judge our new radio system on. This is what it's supposed to sound like on the very questionable end, where it's really starting to get kind of iffy on whether we're going to accept it or not. But you can tell the difference between how scratchy and everything on our current system.
Grid 2240, have we paid that bill?
You can tell the big difference between an analog and a digital system. You may get a little bit of digitization, but it's much, much clearer. And that's what we expect when we do move on to our new system. And to sum up, basically, the current system has definitely got antiquated technology, obviously dating back 20 plus years. We got commercial grade equipment in there that needs to be mission critical grade. We've got end of life components and stuff that's really lived past its useful life. And obviously at the, showed at the very end, the poor coverage. That's the end of my presentation. Chief, did you want to say anything? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes,
for
sir.
Captain Dillo. You know, you've heard from fire EMS that we hear this antiquated system. Is it necessary for protection of our first responders and the citizens in our county?
We have to have the deputy chase the guy for a mile. Through the woods, through the interstate. He's calling on the radio.
And he gave you outside examples. The quality only diminishes inside buildings. So from a fire example, the car boats are encapsulated, self-contained breathing apparatus. And there's more time and distance between their voice and that microphone, and they're inside of a structure. In those areas, just diminish it further. There's likely to not be any signal. So similar to a situation where they've got a violent threat with law enforcement, fire is a violent threat with a firefighter, and inside of a home, whether it be them dealing with the individual inside of a home or us with fire, it diminishes the signal even further.
Yeah, in some way, you're also telling us that, you know, certainly we're endangering our first responders. And such that if you can't contact and they're out in the woods and he's a threat, you know, that puts you in danger as well as, you know, you're inside a fire. So, thank you. And I apologize about pointing you out. But thank you for coming. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, it'd be the same thing if he was chasing someone through the woods and they turned around and shot him. He would have to communicate with the dispatcher. And it needs to be clear so that he can get through. Same thing with a firefighter if they get trapped inside of a building. Very important.
What would the lifespan of this new system be?
It should be around 15 years.
15.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I should say those components will continue to be upgraded. I know the contract that we're negotiating with Motorola, there is one upgrade included in the first 10 years. And that's basically what we should have been doing with this system before. We did do it in 2013 to the credit then. But you really need to have that, you know, the plan of replacing it, technology refresh, especially in today's technology.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Any other questions? Thank you. Let's move to number 19. Consider lease for juvenile probation. Mr. Lanford, I see you came down the stairs earlier.
Want to get caught all the way up in the back. It was a couple months ago, McCoy was talking about getting extra steps in, and then just a few minutes ago, he's talking about how far it was up to the top. So I think he's catching on a little bit to my training program. Starting to slow down a little bit. So in front of you this evening, you have a consideration for a lease agreement for juvenile probation office. For years, they've been in upstairs space above the registrar's office in Fincastle. We were contacted last fall about some issues with water intrusion into their space, plumbing, and ADA compliance. They had a staff member file a request for differing accommodations with their central office. We were able to address most of the building concerns, but given the age of that structure and whatnot, the one issue we weren't able to address was ADA compliance. Since early portion of this year, they have not occupied the space at the direction of their district supervisor, and they have been working temporarily out of the conference room in the general district court building. Judge Tucker allowed them to temporarily work out of some space there. So we looked at several locations that they recommended, some that we recommended, talked to some folks in the real estate industry, and asked for some recommendations. Our primary initial goal was keep them close to Fincastle, but as You know, there's limited office space, especially county facility space there. There wasn't any space available for this type of operation there. So we looked as far away as 220 alternate and settled on a space that they liked with the assistance of some real estate professionals near Lord Botetourt High School. I believe at your desk you have a clean version of the agreement. It wasn't quite finalized by the time your packet was completed. So dates have been added to that. And also one section was cleaned up that talked about real estate fees. There are no real estate fees associated with this transaction. So we would ask you to appropriate the funds for the lease this year. We believe that remainder of the year will be approximately $17,100 for lease payments. Mr. Zarilla has set up an account for that. So we would ask for the appropriation, the approval of the lease, and then staff will work with juvenile probation staff and the owner of the property to move into that space.
Okay. Any questions?
Say we do have money in the budget for this.
We're asking you to appropriate the dollars in the budget. Yes, sir. It would come from your fund, undesignated fund balance.
Any other questions? If not,
I would mention, we anticipate this to be short term, and move folks back to Fincastle. Hopefully, once we finish a construction project there, that'll free up some other office space that's currently occupied for the Commonwealth Attorney.
Thank you.
And the staff at juvenile probation understands that.
So we have in front of us the lease and approval for lease and authorizing the county administrator to affirm lease on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second, I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Now we come to number 20, the board member comments. Any comments from board members that like to present?
Wouldn't be appropriate right now.
I have something. Steve? So just two quick items. I want to acknowledge and commend Supervisor Clinton's work on Greenfield Street and sticking with that and pursuing that, and may not be the outcome that everyone wanted, but I think it's a great compromise. And I think public safety is one of the first things we should be looking at. So thank you for that work. And then I want to extend sympathies to Gary on the passing of his brother. I think we all know about that situation, and please know that we support you and your family, Gary, and we're very sorry.
Thank you. All right. Take a break, reconvene here at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.